The rain hammered against the conference room windows on the 47th floor, creating rivers that distorted the Manhattan skyline into abstract watercolors. Jennifer Hayes pressed her palm against the cold glass, watching the storm consume the city below. She'd been working as executive assistant to Marcus Fitzgerald for 3 years, and in that time, she'd learned to read the subtle shifts in his mood like a sailor reading the sea. Today, something was terribly wrong. Marcus stood at the head of the mahogany table, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. His silver-streaked hair, normally combed with precision, fell across his forehead. At 52, he carried himself with the confidence of a man who'd built an empire from nothing, transforming a small investment firm into Fitzgerald Holdings, a multinational corporation worth billions. But right now, his hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the table. "The presentation is in 20 minutes, Jennifer reminded him softly, her voice barely audible above the storm. "The Chinese investors are already in the building." Marcus didn't respond. His blue eyes stared at the documents scattered before him, but Jennifer could tell he wasn't seeing them. She'd noticed the changes over the past 2 weeks. The missed calls, the canceled meetings, the way he'd sometimes stop mid-sentence and lose his train of thought. Her concerns had grown when she'd overheard his private phone conversations, fragments about doctors and tests and numbers that meant nothing to her but everything to him. Jennifer was 34, a single mother to 7-year-old twins, Austin and Chloe. Her life was a carefully orchestrated ballet of daycare pickups, homework sessions, and late nights at the office. She'd taken this job because it paid well enough to give her children stability after her divorce from Daniel, a charming man who'd proven better at making promises than keeping them. The salary allowed her to afford their small apartment in Queens, piano lessons for Chloe, and soccer for Austin. She couldn't afford to lose this position, but more than that, she'd grown to genuinely respect Marcus. Unlike other executives she'd worked for, Marcus remembered her children's names, asked about their school projects, and had once given her a week's paid leave when Austin broke his arm. He'd built his fortune through real estate and technology investments, but he'd never lost his humanity. His wife had passed away from cancer 5 years ago, and since then, he'd thrown himself into work with an intensity that worried Jennifer. No children, no close family, just the company and the hundreds of employees who depended on him. "Marcus," she said more firmly, moving closer, "we need to go." He finally looked up, and what she saw in his eyes made her breath catch. It wasn't just stress or fatigue, it was fear, raw and undisguised. In 3 years, she'd never seen him afraid of anything. "I can't do this today, Jennifer." His voice was rough, strained. "I need you to cancel. Cancel." She couldn't hide her shock. "This deal represents 18 months of negotiations. If we don't sign today, Henderson Properties will—" "I know what's at stake." His voice rose sharply, then he caught himself, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry. I can't." Jennifer's mind raced. The Chinese investment group was offering $300 million for a joint venture in commercial properties across Asia. It was the largest deal in company history. Canceling would be catastrophic, not just financially, but for the company's reputation. More importantly, rumors had been circulating about Fitzgerald Holdings' vulnerability. Their main competitor, Henderson Properties, had been aggressively pursuing the same investors. Any sign of weakness would be blood in the water. She made a decision that went against every instinct of self-preservation she had. "Then I'll do it," she said quietly. Marcus's head snapped up. "What?" "I'll do the presentation." Her heart was pounding, but her voice remained steady. "I've been in every planning meeting. I know the numbers, the projections, the talking points. I've practically memorized your notes." "Jennifer, you're not—" He stopped himself, but she knew what he'd been about to say. She wasn't an executive. She didn't have an MBA from Harvard or a decade of experience negotiating billion-dollar deals. She was an assistant with a bachelor's degree from a state college, a woman who'd worked her way up from the secretarial pool through sheer determination and countless night classes. "I know I'm not you," she said, meeting his eyes, "but I can do this. I have to try." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the rain against the windows. Jennifer thought about Austin and Chloe, waiting for her at her mother's house in Brooklyn. She thought about the mortgage payment due next week, the notice from Chloe's piano teacher about the recital costume that cost more than she'd budgeted. She thought about all the practical reasons she should stay in her lane, play it safe, protect her job. But she also thought about Marcus, who'd given her a chance when other firms had looked at her resume and seen only a divorced mother without connections, who'd noticed when she was struggling and quietly increased her salary, who'd sent flowers when her father died and hadn't deducted the days she'd taken off. "The investors know me," she continued, her confidence growing. "I've coordinated all their visits, arranged their accommodations, sat in on the preliminary meetings. They trust me. And if I go in there and tell them you're unavailable due to urgent business, but that you've entrusted me with the presentation, it shows strength, not weakness. It shows that Fitzgerald Holdings has depth, that we're not a one-man operation." Marcus studied her for a long moment. She could see him weighing the risks, calculating the odds. Then something shifted in his expression. A mixture of gratitude and something else she couldn't quite identify. "You'd be risking everything," he said slowly. "If this fails, the board will have questions. They'll want to know why I wasn't there. Your job, your reputation." "I know," she interrupted. "But I also know that if we cancel, we lose the deal for certain. This way we have a chance." He nodded slowly, then reached for his briefcase. "The key points are in the blue folder. Focus on the ROI projections for the Shanghai properties. Mr. Chen responds well to concrete numbers and timelines. Don't let them pressure you on the Hong Kong development. We need to keep our options open there." Jennifer grabbed her tablet and the presentation materials, her hands steadier than she felt. As she headed for the door, Marcus called out, "Jennifer." She turned back. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." She managed a smile despite the terror coursing through her veins. "Thank you for trusting me." As she walked down the corridor toward the executive conference room, Jennifer's reflection caught in the glass walls. She looked small, insignificant against the backdrop of steel and wealth. Her navy dress was professional but off the rack, her shoes practical rather than designer. She was about to walk into a room with some of the wealthiest investors in Asia and pretend she belonged there. The double doors loomed ahead. Through the glass, she could see the delegation already seated. 5 men in impeccable suits, their assistants standing along the wall. She recognized Mr. Chen at the head of the table, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp, missing nothing. Jennifer took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and pushed open the doors. Whatever happened next would change everything. The conference room fell silent as Jennifer entered. Mr. Chen's expression shifted from neutral curiosity to something she couldn't quite read. Surprise, perhaps, or disappointment. His 4 colleagues exchanged glances, and she could feel their assessment, their immediate recalculation of the situation. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," Jennifer said, her voice carrying more confidence than she felt. She moved to the head of the table where Marcus should have been standing. "I'm Jennifer Hayes, Mr. Fitzgerald's executive assistant and senior project coordinator. Mr. Fitzgerald sends his sincere apologies. He's been called away on urgent business that required his immediate personal attention." She paused, letting the statement settle. The trick was to make it sound important without making it sound like a crisis. "However, he's asked me to present our proposal to you today. I've been intimately involved in every aspect of this project's development, and I'm fully authorized to answer your questions and move forward with the agreement." Mr. Chen leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. At 63, he was one of the most successful real estate developers in Shanghai, a man who'd survived multiple economic downturns and emerged stronger each time. Jennifer had learned during their previous meetings that he valued directness and competence above all else. "Miss Hayes," he said, his English precise and formal, "we have traveled very far for this meeting. We were expecting to negotiate with Mr. Fitzgerald personally." This was the moment. Jennifer could feel the deal slipping away, could imagine returning to Marcus's office with news of failure. She thought of Austin's face when she'd promised him they'd go to Disney World next summer if she got her performance bonus. She thought of Chloe's eyes lighting up when she talked about becoming a concert pianist someday. "I understand completely, Mr. Chen," she replied, maintaining eye contact. "And that's precisely why Mr. Fitzgerald asked me to represent him today. In Chinese business culture, sending a trusted representative is actually a sign of great respect." It demonstrates that our organization has depth and strength. Mr. Fitzgerald trusts me with his most important negotiation. That should tell you something about both his confidence in this deal and his confidence in our team. She saw something flicker in Mr. Chen's eyes. Approval, she hoped. His colleague to his right, Mr. Wong, leaned over and whispered something in Mandarin. Jennifer had spent 2 weeks working with a language app, trying to learn basic phrases. She caught only one word: interesting. Please, she continued, gesturing to the screen behind her. Allow me to show you why this partnership will be the most profitable decision any of us make this year. For the next hour, Jennifer poured everything she had into the presentation. She walked them through the financial projections, the market analysis, the detailed plans for the Shanghai commercial complex that would serve as the cornerstone of their joint venture. She'd memorized every number, every timeline, every potential obstacle and its solution. But more than that, she'd done something Marcus hadn't thought to do. She'd researched each investor personally. When Mr. Chen questioned the sustainability features of the project, she was ready with information about his own company's recent pivot toward green building practices. When Mr. Wong expressed concern about the timeline, she referenced his successful development in Beijing that had used a similar phased approach. She watched their body language shift gradually from skeptical to engaged. They began asking detailed questions, leaning forward, making notes. Mr. Chen smiled for the first time when she quoted a Chinese proverb about patience and timing that her mother's friend, Mrs. Liu, had taught her specifically for this meeting. By the time she reached the final slide, Jennifer could feel the energy in the room had transformed. What had begun as a disaster was becoming something else entirely, a success she'd never imagined possible. The terms Mr. Fitzgerald is offering are generous, she concluded. A 60-40 split in your favor for the first 2 years, shifting to equal partnership once the Shanghai property reaches profitability. We're proposing an initial investment of $300 million, with options for expansion into Hong Kong and Singapore within 18 months. Mr. Chen stood, and Jennifer's heart stopped. Was he leaving? Had she misread everything? Instead, he extended his hand. Miss Hayes, you have impressed us today. Your knowledge of our business practices and your respect for our culture speak well of Fitzgerald Holdings. We will need to discuss the Hong Kong timeline. We believe 6 months is more realistic than 18. But overall, we are prepared to move forward. Jennifer shook his hand, hoping he couldn't feel how badly she was trembling. Thank you, Mr. Chen. I'm certain we can work with that timeline. As the investors filed out, making arrangements for the contract signing the following day, Jennifer felt her legs weaken. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. She grabbed the edge of the table for support, trying to process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. How did it go? She typed back. They're signing tomorrow. Timeline adjustment on Hong Kong, but the deal is done. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, come to my office. Now. Jennifer gathered her materials and headed back down the corridor. Her mind was already racing ahead to what came next. Would Marcus be grateful? Angry that she'd modified terms without consulting him? Would the board find out? And what about her job? Would this change things? Or would she be right back at her desk tomorrow morning, scheduling meetings and ordering lunch? When she entered Marcus's office, he was standing at the window again, but his posture was different now. Less defeated, more contemplative. You changed the Hong Kong timeline, he said without turning around. They wouldn't have signed without it, Jennifer replied. And honestly, 18 months was always aggressive. 6 months is more realistic if we want to maintain quality standards. You're right. He finally turned to face her. You did something I couldn't have done today, Jennifer. You saved this deal. You saved the company. She saw it then, in the harsh light from the window, how exhausted he looked, how much weight he'd lost recently. The signs had been there, but she'd been too caught up in the daily rush to really notice. What's wrong, Marcus? She asked softly. And please don't tell me nothing. I've worked for you long enough to know when something's seriously wrong. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved to his desk and sank into the chair, suddenly looking every one of his 52 years. 3 weeks ago I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, he said flatly. Glioblastoma. The doctors gave me 6 to 12 months. Maybe 18 if I'm lucky and the treatment works. The words hit Jennifer like a physical blow. She gripped the back of the chair in front of her, trying to process what she'd just heard. The presentation today, he continued. I was having episodes, dizziness, confusion. I couldn't trust myself in that meeting. I couldn't risk. His voice broke slightly. This company is my legacy. It's all I have left of the life Anne and I built together. If it falls apart because I can't hold it together. Jennifer moved around the desk without thinking, crouching beside his chair. It won't fall apart. We won't let it. He looked at her, and she saw tears in his eyes for the first time. I don't have anyone else, Jennifer. No family, no children. Just employees who depend on me and a company that will be torn apart by vultures the moment my condition becomes public. Henderson Properties is already circling. Then we don't let it become public, Jennifer said firmly. Not yet, not until we're ready. We? Marcus repeated. Jennifer stood, her mind already working through possibilities, plans, strategies. She thought about her children sleeping peacefully tonight, unaware that their mother had just stepped off a cliff. She thought about the risk she was taking, the danger of tying herself to a sinking ship. But she also thought about loyalty, about gratitude, about the kind of person she wanted Austin and Chloe to see when they looked at her. Yes, she said. You trusted me today, Marcus. Now I'm asking you to trust me again. We're going to fight this. All of it. The following 3 months transformed Jennifer's life in ways she never could have anticipated. She found herself living in 2 parallel worlds. One where she was still just an executive assistant, maintaining the careful facade for the company's sake, and another where she was secretly running Fitzgerald Holdings alongside a dying man. Marcus began chemotherapy the week after the Chinese deal closed. The treatments left him weak and nauseous, but he insisted on maintaining appearances. On his good days, he came to the office for a few hours, attending critical meetings and keeping up the pretense that everything was normal. On his bad days, Jennifer covered for him with carefully crafted excuses: business trips, investor meetings, strategic planning sessions. She learned to forge his signature perfectly. She memorized his speech patterns and management style so thoroughly that she could write emails that sounded exactly like him. She studied every deal he'd ever made, every business decision, every relationship he'd cultivated over 30 years in the industry. Her small apartment became a satellite office, with files and documents spread across every surface. Her mother, Patricia, moved in temporarily to help with Austin and Chloe, asking no questions, but watching her daughter with worried eyes. "Mommy works too much now," Chloe said one evening, her small face serious as Jennifer tucked her into bed at nearly 10 o'clock. "Are we poor again?" The question pierced Jennifer's heart. Chloe still remembered the lean years after the divorce, when they'd eaten pasta 4 nights a week, and new clothes came from thrift stores. "No, sweetheart," Jennifer assured her, smoothing back her daughter's dark curls. "We're not poor. Mommy just has a very important project at work. But it won't be forever, I promise." "Austin says you're going to be famous," Chloe whispered. "He heard Grandma talking to her friend. He said you're doing something brave." Jennifer kissed her daughter's forehead, blinking back tears. "I'm just doing my job, baby. Now get some sleep." But it was more than just a job, and everyone knew it. The other executives had begun to notice Jennifer's increased involvement in high-level decisions. Some accepted it gracefully, understanding that Marcus trusted her judgment. Others, like Richard Pemberton, the chief operating officer, resented her presence in the boardroom. "She's overstepping," Jennifer overheard Richard telling Marcus's lawyer, Howard Mitchell, outside the executive washroom. "An assistant has no business making strategic decisions. If Marcus isn't capable of running this company anymore, the board needs to know." Jennifer's hands had clenched around the files she was carrying. Richard had been angling for control of Fitzgerald Holdings for years. He was competent but ruthless, the kind of man who saw employees as numbers on a spreadsheet. If he took over, the company would become something Marcus never intended: a cold, profit-driven machine that devoured anything in its path. The situation reached a crisis point on a Tuesday in late September. Jennifer was in Marcus's home office, reviewing quarterly reports while he rested upstairs, when her phone rang. It was Howard Mitchell, Marcus's longtime attorney, and one of the few people who knew about his condition. "Jennifer, we have a problem," Howard said without preamble. "I just got a call from Richard Pemberton. He's calling an emergency board meeting for Friday. He's demanding a vote on Marcus's fitness to continue as CEO." Jennifer's blood ran cold. "He can't do that. Marcus is still perfectly capable." "Legally, he can," Howard interrupted. "And Jennifer, Marcus has been missing meetings. The board has noticed his absences. The decision-making that's clearly not coming from him anymore. They're getting nervous. And when boards get nervous, they act. If they force a medical evaluation, the truth will come out." After hanging up, Jennifer sat in silence, staring at the wall of photographs documenting Marcus's life. His wedding day, Anne radiant in white, groundbreaking ceremonies for major projects, charity galas and business awards, a life built through determination and vision, now threatened by cancer and corporate politics. She thought about simply walking away. She could resign, go back to being invisible, protect herself and her children from the fallout. No one could blame her. She'd already done more than anyone had the right to ask. Instead, she climbed the stairs to Marcus's bedroom. He was awake, propped against pillows, looking frailer than ever. The chemotherapy had stolen his vitality, leaving behind a shadow of the powerful man she'd first met 3 years ago. "Richard's making his move," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Emergency board meeting Friday. He's going to push for your removal." Marcus closed his eyes. It was only a matter of time. "We can fight this," Jennifer insisted. "Howard can challenge the procedure. Buy us more time. For what?" Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm dying, Jennifer. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but soon. The company needs leadership that isn't falling apart. Richard is a shark, but he's a competent shark. Maybe—" "No," Jennifer cut him off. "I haven't spent 3 months holding this company together just to hand it over to someone who'll destroy everything you built." Then what do you suggest?" Marcus asked, and there was genuine curiosity in his eyes. Jennifer took a deep breath. What she was about to propose was insane, possibly illegal, and would likely destroy her career if it failed. But she'd learned something important over the past 3 months. She was tired of playing it safe. "Make me Chief Operations Officer," she said. "Promote me this week, before the board meeting. Richard's entire argument is that you're making poor decisions because of illness. But if you publicly acknowledge that you've been delegating operations to me, that you're grooming new leadership, it shows planning and strength, not weakness." Marcus stared at her. "Jennifer, you don't have the credentials. The board will accept what you tell them to accept," she countered. "You still hold controlling interest, and I've already been doing the job for months. We just make it official. Then at the meeting, I present our 5-year strategic plan, the one I've been working on, and I show them exactly how capable I am. And when they find out about my condition, then we control the narrative," Jennifer said, her mind racing through the possibilities. "We announce it on our terms, with a succession plan already in place. We show them that Fitzgerald Holdings is stronger than one man, even if that man is you." For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then slowly he began to smile. The first real smile she'd seen from him in weeks. "Anne would have liked you," he said quietly. "She always told me I was too cautious, too afraid to take chances on people, but you—" He shook his head in wonder. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the craziest." "Probably both," Jennifer admitted. "All right," Marcus said. "Let's do it. But Jennifer, if this goes wrong—" "It won't," she said with more confidence than she felt. "Trust me." That night, as Jennifer drove home through the city streets, her phone rang. It was her mother. "Jenny, you need to come home right away." Patricia's voice was strained. "There's been an accident. Daniel showed up drunk, demanding to see the kids. He caused a scene in the lobby. The police are here." Jennifer's heart plummeted. Daniel. Her ex-husband had been largely absent for 2 years, sending sporadic child support payments and broken promises. Now, of all times, he decided to reappear. When she arrived home, she found her building's lobby in chaos. Daniel was being restrained by 2 police officers, shouting incoherently. Upstairs, she found Austin and Chloe huddled with her mother, both children crying. "He said we had to come with him," Austin sobbed. "He said you didn't want us anymore because you were too busy being important." Jennifer held her children close, fury and heartbreak warring inside her. This was the price of her ambition, she realized. While she'd been playing corporate chess, her real life had been falling apart. The police took statements. Daniel was arrested for public intoxication and disturbing the peace. As he was led away, he turned to Jennifer with hate-filled eyes. "You think you're so much better than me now," he spat. "But you're still nothing, just a secretary playing dress-up. And when you fall, and you will fall, I'll be there to take my kids from you." After everyone left, Jennifer sat on her couch, Austin and Chloe finally asleep in her arms. The board meeting was in 3 days. She had presentations to prepare, strategies to finalize, a dying billionaire counting on her to save his life's work, and now, apparently, she had to worry about losing her children too. For the first time since this had all begun, Jennifer wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. The morning of the board meeting arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of false spring that sometimes visited New York in October. Jennifer stood before her bedroom mirror, adjusting the navy suit she'd purchased specifically for this occasion. It had cost more than she'd ever spent on a single piece of clothing, but she needed the armor, the confidence that came from looking like she belonged in that boardroom. Austin knocked softly on her door. At 7 years old, he was already protective, already trying to be the man of the house in ways that both broke and filled her heart. "You look really pretty, Mom," he said. "Like a superhero in a suit." Jennifer knelt down, pulling him into a hug. "Thank you, baby. Grandma's going to take you and Chloe to school today, okay? I have something very important to do." "Are you going to win?" he asked with the simple directness of childhood. "I'm going to try my very best," she promised. The Fitzgerald Holdings boardroom occupied the entire 48th floor, a cathedral of glass and steel designed to intimidate. When Jennifer entered at 9 o'clock sharp, 14 board members were already seated around the massive table. Marcus sat at the head, looking surprisingly strong today. He'd timed his chemotherapy specifically to ensure he'd have energy for this meeting. It might cost him days of recovery afterward, but he'd insisted. Richard Pemberton sat to Marcus's left, his expression smug. He'd been circulating rumors all week, planting seeds of doubt about Marcus's capability. Jennifer could see the uncertainty in the other board members' faces. Successful business people who'd entrusted billions to Fitzgerald Holdings and now wondered if their investment was at risk. "Gentlemen, ladies," Marcus began, his voice steady and clear. "I've called this meeting to address concerns about the company's leadership and to make an important announcement." Richard leaned forward, sensing victory. "Over the past 6 months," Marcus continued, "I've been implementing a succession and expansion strategy. The business landscape is changing rapidly, and Fitzgerald Holdings needs to evolve. To that end, I'm promoting Jennifer Hayes to Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately." The room erupted. Richard shot to his feet. "This is absurd! She's an assistant. She has no executive experience, no—" "She has 3 months of experience running this company's daily operations." Marcus cut him off, his voice sharp with authority. "And she's done it brilliantly." "The Chinese deal?" Jennifer negotiated and closed it. "The Henderson property counteroffer we rejected last month?" Jennifer analyzed and presented that recommendation. "The restructuring of our European holdings?" Jennifer's strategy. "While you were where exactly?" Richard challenged. "Missing meetings, unavailable for decisions, building something larger than myself," Marcus replied. "Which is what any good leader does. Jennifer, if you would present the strategic plan." Jennifer stood, tablet in hand, and moved to the presentation screen. Her hands were steady now. She'd been preparing for this moment for weeks, but more than that, she'd been preparing for it her entire life. Every night class, every extra hour, every sacrifice. Fitzgerald Holdings currently operates in 7 countries with primary focus on commercial real estate, she began. Our 5-year plan expands into sustainable development, mixed-use properties, and strategic partnerships with international firms. We're projecting 38% growth with carefully managed risk distribution. For the next hour, She walked them through detailed projections, market analyses, and innovative strategies that would position Fitzgerald Holdings as a leader in next-generation urban development. She addressed every concern, answered every question, and demonstrated a command of the business that came not from an MBA, but from 3 years of absorbing every detail of how Marcus had built his empire. When she finished, the room was silent. Even Richard looked grudgingly impressed, though his jaw remained tight with anger. "The question before this board," Marcus said quietly, "is simple. Do we move forward with vision and courage? Or do we retreat into the familiar? Jennifer represents the future of this company. I'm asking you to trust her the way I have." Board member Victoria Chen, no relation to the Chinese investor, spoke first. At 70, she was the oldest member and one of the wisest. "I have one question for Miss Hayes. Why? Why take on this responsibility? You must know you're making yourself a target." Jennifer met her eyes steadily. "Because Mr. Fitzgerald gave me a chance when no one else would. Because this company employs 4,000 people whose families depend on us making the right decisions. And because I believe in building something that matters, something that lasts beyond quarterly earnings reports." Victoria smiled. "I vote yes." One by one, the other board members added their support. When it came to Richard, he stood stiffly. "I vote no. This is a mistake we'll all regret." But he was outvoted 13-1. After the meeting, as the board members filed out, Marcus pulled Jennifer aside. "There's one more thing," he said, his voice low. "My will. I'm leaving you the company." Jennifer's eyes widened. "Marcus, you can't." "I can and I am. Not all of it. There are charitable foundations, bequests to Anne's family, but controlling interest comes to you. Howard has the documents." He gripped her shoulders. "Don't let them destroy what we built, Jennifer. Promise me." "I promise," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. That evening, exhausted and emotionally drained, Jennifer returned home to find her mother in the kitchen making dinner. Austin and Chloe were doing homework at the table, and for a moment, everything felt almost normal. "How'd it go?" Patricia asked. "I'm the chief operating officer of a multi-billion-dollar corporation," Jennifer said, still hardly believing it herself. Her mother pulled her into a fierce hug. "I always knew you were extraordinary, baby girl. I just wish your father had lived to see this." Later, after the children were asleep, Jennifer stood on her tiny balcony overlooking Queens, watching the distant lights of Manhattan. Her phone buzzed with a text from Howard Mitchell. "Daniel filed for custody modification. Claims your new position makes you unfit mother due to work demands. Court date in 3 weeks." Jennifer should have felt panic, but instead she felt only determination. She'd faced down a boardroom of skeptical executives. She'd learned to run a billion-dollar company while a good man fought for his life. She'd risked everything for loyalty and principle. Daniel, with his petty vindictiveness and empty threats, didn't scare her anymore. 6 months later, Jennifer stood in the same boardroom, but everything had changed. Marcus had passed away peacefully 3 weeks earlier, surrounded by the hospice team and Jennifer, who'd held his hand as he took his final breath. The funeral had been attended by hundreds, business leaders, employees, people whose lives he'd touched. The custody battle with Daniel had been swift and decisive. When the judge reviewed Jennifer's financial stability, her mother's live-in support, and Daniel's arrest record, he dismissed the petition entirely. Daniel had slunk away, and Jennifer hadn't heard from him since. Now she stood before the board as CEO, not just COO, but the leader of Fitzgerald Holdings. The transition had been seamless because she'd already been doing the job. The company's stock had actually risen after Marcus's death, a testament to the confidence the market had in the succession plan. "Our first quarter exceeded projections by 12%, she reported. "The Shanghai development breaks ground next month. We've acquired 2 sustainable building firms and partnered with 3 international architects specializing in green design. But the real news, the thing that made her smile, was more personal. I'm also pleased to announce that Fitzgerald Holdings is establishing the Marcus Fitzgerald Foundation for Educational Advancement. We'll be providing scholarships for single parents pursuing business degrees, internship programs for non-traditional students, and mentorship opportunities for people who, like me, didn't follow the conventional path. After the meeting, Victoria Chen approached her. "You've done something remarkable, Jennifer. Marcus would be very proud." "I hope so," Jennifer replied. "I'm still learning every day." "We all are," Victoria said with a knowing smile. "That's what keeps us sharp." That evening, Jennifer sat on her balcony, though now it was the balcony of a brownstone in Brooklyn she'd purchased last month. Austin and Chloe were playing in the backyard below, their laughter floating up through the warm spring air. Her mother brought out 2 glasses of wine and sat beside her. "Do you ever think about how crazy this all is?" Patricia asked. "A year ago, you were scheduling meetings and ordering lunch. Every day," Jennifer admitted. "But Marcus taught me something important. He asked me once what I was most afraid of, and I said failure. He told me that wasn't my real fear. My real fear was discovering I was capable of more than I ever imagined, and then having to live up to that potential." Was he right? Jennifer watched her children, thought about the company, the employees, the responsibility. "Yes, but I'm not afraid anymore." Her phone buzzed with an email from the Shanghai office. The development team needed approval on design modifications. Jennifer smiled, picking up her tablet. Some things never changed. There was always another decision to make, another problem to solve, another challenge to face. But now she faced them as the CEO of Fitzgerald Holdings, a company built on vision, courage, and the belief that sometimes the most unlikely people are capable of extraordinary things. Austin looked up from the yard and waved. "Mom, come play with us." Jennifer set down the tablet. Work could wait 15 minutes. She ran down the stairs and into the yard, chasing her children through the grass, their laughter mingling with hers. She'd risked everything to save Marcus's company. And in doing so, she'd saved herself, discovering a strength and capability she never knew she possessed. The single mother from Queens who'd once worried about making rent was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned the most important lesson of all, that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. And as the sun set over Brooklyn, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Jennifer Hayes knew that her greatest adventure was just beginning.